is my first time conducting an interview.
Okay.
So I'm excited.
I'm glad to be part of your inaugural visit there.
Yeah, you're my guinea pig.
Yeah, that sounds good.
All right. So we're gonna go ahead and get started.
Okay.
Obviously, I'm Zach Hughes. This is Lifting with Legends, and today's legend is Leo TOTTEN. Also, my coach. I'm just going to say a little bit about you, your resume, and then if you want to add anything, you can.
Okay.
You were inducted into the USAW Weightlifting Hall of Fame in 2018. You're a level 5 senior international coach, head coach of East Coast Gold. East Coast Gold is the 9-time national men's team champ, and then the 7-time national women's team champs. You have over 30 years of Olympic weightlifting coaching experience. You've coached 2 Olympic teams in 96 and 04, and 3 Pan Am teams and 5 World Championship teams. And you were a competitive weightlifter from 1967 to 1984, and you participated in 2 Olympic trials. And you founded East Coast Gold the year before I was born, 1992. Is there anything else that
that pretty much summarizes it. We have won more national team titles than 9 and 7 at this point. We're up to 21 total.
Oh, okay. Awesome. Well, Leo, where does your journey begin in the sport of weightlifting? And it not even just like coaching wise, but as an athlete, where does your story begin?
So I go way back. Okay. I bought my. Way back. You want to go that far?
As far back as you want to go.
When I bought my first set of weights when I was 12. And I got them from York Barbell because I only live about an hour from there. So went there and got a 100-pound set. And I was always a working sort of kid because we didn't have a whole lot of money growing up. So I started delivering papers when I was 8. So anyway, the way I got my money to get this first set was picking cherries at the local orchard, like 4 miles down the road. Rode there on my bike, and a quarter a bucket.
A quarter a bucket.
So I needed $20.
What's the inflation on that now?
I have no idea. I had no idea. But I earned $20 picking cherries, so I could buy my first set of weights. It was a 100-pound set. I got it from York Barbell, and saw those guys at the time. This was like in the late '60s, and all the weightlifters from around the world came to York to train. Around the country came to train. York at the time was like the mecca of weightlifting. So I saw these guys doing that, and here I was, this little 12-year-old pipsqueak, and saw these guys doing it and said, hey, I want to be like that. And so started teaching myself snatch and clean and jerk from Strength and Health magazine way back in the day, and watching those guys. So
me and you are similar in that regard, as you started teaching yourself how to lift, and me as well. I taught myself how to lift from YouTube. So
yeah.
Two different eras,
but
same
thing.
Exactly.
Same thing. So that's how I got my start.
And then you trained with a lot of people at York Barbell. That's where you primarily trained coming up.
Yeah.
Who were some of the people that you trained with most notably?
Probably the most notable was Lee James, who just recently, unfortunately, passed away.
Okay.
But silver medalist in the 1976 Olympics, and I trained with him. So
that's awesome.
That was a pretty cool place to train for sure.
Okay. Well, it looks like to me that you had almost a 20-year career as an athlete. I think it was 17 years or so. What were your PRs when you were competing?
Okay, well, the weight classes change obviously, but I was in the 90. I worked my way up to the 90-kilo class, which is kind of cool because when I first started as a 12-year-old, I weighed 83 pounds. I was just a wee little guy, and I always say I was so weak I couldn't pee a hole in the snow. So I got to the point where I ended up in the 90. I went through all the classes basically up to 90. And my best snatch was 150 kilos, and best clean jerk was 195.
Awesome. Well, those are very respectable lifts that I will be breaking very soon.
That's the goal. As a coach, I want my athletes to do more than I did as an athlete. Absolutely.
What would you say is your most memorable moment as an athlete?
That's really hard to tell because, you have so many of them. I think probably as an athlete competing in Olympic trials. I think that was probably the most memorable thing.
That's one thing that I'm sad that they don't have this time around, or the past couple Olympics, is because they're trying to find ways to make it harder for people to dope. So they have to have more meets that people go to internationally. So they've kind of taken away the just ramp up for the very end at the Olympic trials and then put everyone in a Olympic trial session and go at it, and whoever hits the biggest lifts goes to the Olympics. but that must have been a really cool experience competing in that.
Well, and I like you said, I miss that. I think that I would love to see him still continue with the Olympic trials, but now they have the ranking system where you don't really need an Olympic trials, but that's a big event. Like I said, that was a highlight for me, and now they've taken that away from some of the top athletes that haven't quite made it to the Olympics, but really close. So you're taking that experience away from them. So I'd really like to see them come back with that and have an actual Olympic trials meet. So
Yeah.
that people can say, hey, I've been doing Olympic trials, and that's a big deal.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think if you were to do another highlight, I think when I finally snatched 150, that was a big deal. That was a big deal.
I can relate to that.
Yeah,
I just
absolutely.
got my first one, and it's a big moment for sure.
That's why I was so proud of you, man. Absolutely.
Well, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
I'm thankful to have someone in my corner that has been where I'm trying to go, and can share in that excitement with me and understand like how exciting that moment was.
Absolutely.
And I know you were excited in that moment too. Okay, next question. If you could go back and give yourself 2 or 3 pieces of advice, people typically say one, but I figure that maybe we could give a couple pieces of advice to your past self. What would those pieces of advice be?
Find a good coach earlier in my career. I didn't really have a coach and coached myself. And when I did start competing for York Barbell, there was a coach there that worked with me some, but still I did my own programming, and I got together with him once or twice a week. I drove an hour each way to York Barbell to train with him. But other than that, I pretty much coached myself. So I think looking back, I did a lot of the research myself on the Soviet training methods and the Bulgarian, and all these things, trying to accumulate all this knowledge on my own, which was very beneficial to me. But as a coach now, right, because I think that made me a much better coach. But it also slowed me down as an athlete, because the things that would take me months to figure out what I was doing wrong myself, now I can look at somebody and pick it out like really quick. So the learning experience was good, but it also kind of held me back, because all the time spent through that trial and error period, that I could have been advancing a little bit quicker. I mean, I did my best lifts when I was 32, and ideally,
I didn't realize that.
Yeah, ideally you'd want to, because I was, I don't want to say I was a slow learner, but it was like a slow progress, a process of getting to that point, and trying to juggle other things, family life and my teaching and coaching career, because I coached a lot of sports at the high school where I taught, so that spent a lot of time, I think. So I would say one thing is to find a coach earlier, and I think the second thing was maybe not spread myself out so thin, because I was doing, I was teaching till 3, coaching till 6, lifting till 10. That was my day. And
I can relate to that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And some advice to you, it does take away from your own lifting. So, you're asking me what I would do different. I would cut back on some of those things. Can't cut back on the family thing, that's not the point. But cutting back on some of the extra things that I liked doing and I was pretty good at, but I needed to kind of pull back a little bit more so I could focus more on my own lifting. But I think that might be some good advice for you, actually.
Awesome. Well, I will. I'll work on that. I think that one thing that I've learned owning a gym and being a coach of a team, trying to follow in your footsteps with East Coast Gold and building that team community, that team culture in St. Louis, is it's hard to balance that for me.
It is.
Because, I always tell people to be a coach is to be selfless, and you're always caring for others and trying to take care of your athletes. And to be an athlete is to be selfish and only care about yourself and your progress and how you're feeling and your food and your sleep, and not really caring about outside factors. So balancing that is challenging at times, and sometimes you got to put more into one bucket than the other bucket. So figuring out how to do that and when to do that is hard. So just like you said, and then when you add a family and kids and everything into it, it just gets even more complicated. But I think we're doing okay.
I think so too.
I think we're doing okay.
I think so too.
All right, transitioning from being an athlete to coaching career now. All right, and you started East Coast Gold. Tell us just a little bit about East Coast Gold.
Well, what happened was in 1992, I was coaching some individuals, a couple and 2 of them qualified for nationals. Well, it was just us. I didn't have any money. They didn't have any money, so we couldn't go to nationals. I said, well, look, this isn't going to happen again. We're going to start our own little team, see if we can work on some fundraising, getting some sponsors, helping us financially, and that's really how it started. And so after that, we started. The team got bigger and bigger, and what I found was that there was a lot of people out there in different areas around me that didn't really have a coach. So we started the concept of the satellite centers, where wherever they were, where their gym was, we said, okay, you're a satellite center for East Coast Gold. We're going to try to develop coaches and athletes at that center, and we're going to help you do that. But we'll all fall under the same umbrella of East Coast Gold. And then as the satellite centers developed, things just got bigger and bigger. And I think we're at like 300 members now or something like that. So it's been a great journey. You meet a lot of really good people along the way. And what we've tried to do is just create a real positive culture. And our motto is kind of do the right thing with the right people for the right reasons. So, and I think, you just hang out with good quality people that way. And, I've had some, I don't want to call them butt heads, but yeah, some athletes that wanted to be part of the team, but, I looked at, how they conducted themselves, would you want to hang out with that sort of person? And if the answer was no, then I'm like, no, maybe you might want to try another team.
Yeah.
So we've been kind of picky about who's part of our team, and again, we try to do it the right way. And if sometimes people will come to us athletes will come to us to be part of the team, and some people say, well, you're poaching, or you're trying to pull people in and encroach on other teams, and we never do that. And I just think that, and it seems to be like a lot of that's starting to happen now with other teams, and we get accused of it, but I swear we never do that. We never approach other people. Now, if they're unaffiliated and they're close by and they ask us, or we communicate, that's fine. Or if they're part of another team and they want to be part of our team, my job is to communicate with them and their coach. I want to make sure I don't want to step on anybody's toes. I don't want my toes stepped on. So I certainly wouldn't want to do theirs. So
Exactly.
it's been a really good ride, and it was for the longest time just me doing everything. I mean, setting up hotels and sending out newsletters, and it was all me doing it. And we even did it not by email, because at the time there was no such thing as email. So I would make hard copies. I would do like a 3-page newsletter, mail it to all, whatever it was at the time, 300 members.
And that's a chore right there.
That is a chore. Did it every month for a couple years. And then email came around and said, yeah, this is so much easier.
Dial up.
Oh, absolutely. And
that home phone.
yeah. You teased me about that home phone, don't you? You had to throw that in. But anyway, so that's how the team developed. And right now, I've kind of backed away from a lot of the logistical type things, and our main center right now is in Virginia Beach. Phil Sabatini and his crew are the main hub that we have right now. They do a lot of those things. So I've been able to back away from some of that and actually do more with my TOTTEN training business, where I do more from an educational standpoint, where the team is still more the competitive aspect. So I still do a lot with the team, but a lot of the day-to-day things, then Phil and those guys are doing. So that's been very helpful.
You mentioned Phil Sabatini. What a guy.
You think?
He's another legend. Maybe I should have him on next.
Absolutely. I think that'd be a good choice.
But a little bit about Phil. He's what, 41?
I think he just turned 40.
40,
Yeah.
Okay, and he's an incredible lifter. He snatched 57. He's clean and jerked 93.
Yeah.
And even at the age of 40, the young age of 40, he's still hitting big lifts, and he could probably go to pretty much any nationals he wants and either win or medal.
Yeah.
And one thing I like about him, he's very consistent. He makes all of his lifts. He's very consistent in his training. He's very consistent in his approach and his mindset. A lot of things to respect about Phil. Tell me about your relationship with Phil Sabatini.
Oh gosh, Phil and I go way back. He was actually in his first meet was in Pittsburgh. I guess 10 years ago? I don't know. I lose track of the years. And he went to Ohio University, and I had done some USA weightlifting clinics there. courses there. And so met him there. Joe Fondale was another one of our lifters who was a coach there. And so it kind of evolved from that. Well, the first meet that Phil was at was in Pittsburgh, and I coached him there. And it was all power snatch and power clean. You know, so he was just a real powerful guy. And Joe Fondale was coaching him at the time. And Joe said, hey, you know, he was at the Naval Academy as a coach. And he said, well, you know, he's really busy with his Naval Academy stuff. Do you want to take over training with Phil? I said, sure, you know, because I really saw the talent there. And so we've been working together for I guess it's been about 10 years. And so the relationship kind of developed, and his lifts kept getting better and better. Matter of fact, I just posted on my website. I do a throwback Thursday, and it was like a little sequence photo of Phil at the American Open. I think it was 2010. Right, so it's been some years, and so
More than 10.
Yeah, it's been, I guess, 13 then.
Okay.
And you know, he's really come a long way, and you know, his lifts just, you know, you mentioned consistency. And that's what I teach all the time. I said, if you do something consistently, over time it's going to get better, but you got to show up, okay? And you got to do it as consistently as possible, and that builds confidence, and that builds, you know, it just keeps building on itself. And you know, he's been the model of consistency as far as how he conducts himself in life and his training, and that consistency is huge. And yeah, Phil's quite the guy. You know, between you know, good-looking guy, he's really built good, he's strong as anything. Even at his older age here, he's still
people just love him.
Well, and he's such a good guy. Now he's a competitor. Don't get in his way.
That's one thing I love that.
Don't get in his way if he misses the lift.
He flips that switch.
I know when to get out of the way. But you know, he plays in a band, sings, plays guitar, plays saxophone. Has a beautiful wife, 3 beautiful kids. Really smart. Teaches exercise physiology at Old Dominion University. Coaches his athletes. He does it all. Kind of pisses you off a little bit when he's that good.
Well, that's someone who I want to emulate. You know, because
that's a good one to emulate.
Exactly, because I'm trying to grow a team as well, as be a part of East Coast Gold. But I'm trying to grow a team as well, and you know, I see someone like him who's able to do it all, have a family, balance lifting, balance coaching, and you know, his extracurriculars, his creative outlets as well, and do it at such a high level. You know, and for such a long time, that's something that I want for myself. You know, I want to be 10 years from now still, you know, hitting PRs and, you know, winning medals.
It's a lifestyle.
Exactly.
Okay? It has to be the habits that you formed. It needs to be kind of automatic. It's just the way you are, the way you live. And that's how he is. And so if you want to emulate him, I think that's a pretty good road to go.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Perfect. What are essential pieces for building a good team?
That's a good question. There's a lot of factors that go into it. I think I would say the first thing is just surround yourself with good people.
Yeah.
Good quality people.
That seems like a good one.
Yeah, I mean, that's just
underrated.
It shouldn't be, because I mean, that should be the base of everything, you know. And if you hang around with good people, it elevates you. You know, if you hang around with buttheads, it drops you down.
That's one of the reasons why I chose you as my coach, is because it just seemed like you were a good guy.
I appreciate that.
And that's number one.
That's what I want to be. That's what I want to be. Just a good guy that people can relate to. And that's the next thing I would say is just try to develop those positive relationships where it's not just, they're not just a number, and they're not just points for the team. They're an important part of, you know, the whole team culture. And so if all you worry about is the team points, then you're not don't really have the relationship with the athletes like you should.
Yeah.
And I think it's important that they know that they're an important part of the team, no matter what level they are.
Yeah.
And it's not, and again, it's not just about the team points. And I know people say, well, you've won 21 team titles and you have all these lifters here and there, and it's really cool that you have that. But the team points are secondary. When I put the team together, my whole goal was just to make each individual athlete the best that you can do and provide as much as we can for them. If you take care of the individual, the team thing is just icing on the cake.
I agree.
And so, and I've always said that. So if the individual comes first, the team is second, and the team accolades will come to follow that. And again, it's not all about the team points. One time we had, I think it was the 53 kilo women's class at the time, and we had 6 East Coast Gold team members in that weight class. Well, you can only count 2 toward team points. So, which means the other 4, they would still compete, but they wouldn't count as team points. So I said, look, if the next weight class up, if you want to go up a weight class, there's, you might have a chance of medaling, you can get some team points, but it's totally up to you, okay? Out of you 6, if you all 6 want to stay at the 53 and not move up, I'm absolutely fine with that. Whatever's best for you. All 6 of them decided to stay, and I was absolutely fine with that. So the point is if I would have been greedy and all about the team points, I would have insisted that, hey, we got to get 2 up there, we need those points. It's not how we operate.
Yeah.
It's all about the individual, and if the individual does well, the team ends up doing well.
I respect that.
Yeah.
Talk about some of the notable athletes that you've worked with and developed over the years.
Well, Phil's got to be number 1. Okay.
Of course, Phil's.
Yeah,
He's the guy.
He's the guy.
He's the guy.
But there's been a lot, and they don't necessarily. They're not necessarily national champions, but they're a champion in what you see in them and the progress you see, and how they conduct themselves. All that stuff. That's a big part of. The lifting obviously is important. That's only part of it. So it's really hard to pinpoint. I mean, I've had a couple athletes go to the Olympics, a couple making world teams, and that's all really good. But I'm just as proud of. I'll give you an example of. You work with anybody, no matter what their level is. Okay, if they're willing to work hard, I'm willing to work hard with them and for them. A good example is one of my female lifters, Kate Finn, who's also part of my TOTTEN training. I'll mention here in a second. She first came to us. I think it's been about 10 years ago. Came to a weightlifting meet on her own and didn't have a coach. So I was running the meet. So I hooked her up with one of our East Coast Gold coaches, helped her, and she just kind of fell in love with the sport. Came to one of my weightlifting camps, and she said she had been in a bad car accident, and she had a pin in her leg. She had gained some weight that she didn't want to gain. So she weighed, I think, 92 kilos, she told me. And so she said that she came to the camp and she said, would you work with me individually after the camp? Because I want to get down to the 69 kilo class and I want to qualify for the American Open. And I was thinking to myself, okay, sure, I've heard this before. People say, oh, I want to make an Olympic team. They don't realize what it takes to get there, okay? Mm-hmm. But I'll work with them if they're willing to work. So anyway, I said, okay, let's get this. We need to do this, this, and this. Follow the program to a T. Changed her nutrition. Got her weight down to the 69 kilo class. Qualified for the American Open. That was her goal. She made that. Well, now, even though she didn't make nationals or win nationals or anything, well, now she's my right-hand man for my TOTTEN training systems, okay? She does all my social media stuff. She does my marketing. She's one of my best coaches. When I teach my individual courses, mm-hmm. She's one of my top teachers and coaches. So my point here is if you work with anybody and they're willing to work, you can take them to whatever level they want to get to. And like I said, like I even put on my signature with my on my email, chasing your genetic potential. So whatever their potential is, we're going after that to get as much as they can get out of themselves, and that's why we're here.
Good answer. All right. Well, I know you just said it's kind of hard, but what's some of your most memorable moments as a coach?
As a coach, it's got to be the Olympics. I just remember my first Olympics in '96. And by the way, I was the team leader, so it was kind of like manager, coach, so kind of did it all. But anyway, so it was in Atlanta, and they had 2 stadiums. The one new stadium was where the opening ceremonies were, and the track and field, things like that. Well, the stadium right across the street was the old stadium, and that's where they housed all the athletes to line them up to get ready to come into the main arena. I'll never forget when Team USA starts walking in. We go up this ramp into the new stadium, come over the little hill and start coming down. I was like, it literally took your breath away. And I think I just pretty much floated down there. I mean, it was just unbelievable. The lights flashing and all the other teams are already in there. It was just unbelievable. So that experience, I think, was one of the many highlights. So, that's why you do what you do, to experience things like that.
That's the pinnacle.
The pinnacle. But you know what? It's a pinnacle when Justin Devereaux last night in the Masters Nationals wins the national title, comes through on his last clean and jerk, and that's like a daily pinnacle,
Yeah.
so to speak. So there's a lot, and that's why we keep doing what we do.
Yeah.
It's just very rewarding, and we don't get rich off of it, but hey, we get rich in other ways.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Exactly. Rich in other ways, I like that.
Yeah.
So, what are a few pieces of advice that you would give to new coaches who are wanting to follow in your footsteps?
Well, first of all, don't follow me in my footsteps. Create your own path. Do it your own way.
That's a good one.
Yeah, because everybody's different. Now, I study coaches of all sports. Basketball, football. Vince Lombardi and Mike Krzyzewski and John Wooden, and heck, I even subscribe to Success magazine just because of the success people as in business and different entrepreneurs. And I'm not even an entrepreneur.
You seem like a guy who subscribes to magazines still.
Yeah, well, no, that's the only one. That's the only one I do. And it's just, what I do is I try to find out what makes them successful, and even musicians, follow along with what they do, how their life was, what they do that I can emulate, but use it as part of me, not necessarily to be them, but to use parts of them that I believe in, that can make me a better coach. So I would say, for coaches, don't emulate everybody to the point of being them, but take bits and pieces of what made them successful, and maybe they can help make you successful in your own way.
That's a good answer.
Yeah, so I would say that.
I agree. I think that as a weightlifting coach, if you only focus on other weightlifting coaches versus the vast, wealth of knowledge that comes from other coaches from other sports and other areas, I feel like there's a lot that you can learn from
Absolutely.
other people, not just weightlifting coaches.
Absolutely.
But I agree with you. Blazing your own path is very important. But of course, there are a lot of things that I've learned from you as a coach, and I've taken a lot of the things you've said to me, or I've seen you say to other people, or things you've put in programs, or how you've approached problems. I take that and I have applied that to my team, so I appreciate that. Next thing I want to talk about is kind of how we met. I remember I was at a CrossFit gym. I was in college, and I was at a CrossFit gym training in the winter because it was like Christmas break, and I was training one day, and Quinn Hinnick, I don't know if you know who that is.
Sure.
He came over to me because he just so happened to be training there because he was from Louisville as well, and I guess it was only me and him doing weightlifting, and then the rest of the gym was like doing CrossFit, obviously, because at this time weightlifting was still kind of not a huge thing. It was on the precipice of kind of becoming something bigger.
Mm-hmm.
He came up to me and told me about the NSCA convention that was happening. Those who don't know what the NSCA is, it's the National Strength and Conditioning Association. There was a convention going on in Louisville, and he was like, "Hey, I'm going to be training at the Aleco booth with this guy Leo TOTTEN. He's a really good coach. You should come. We can hit some lifts. It's going to be a good time." And me, being the guy that I am, I had a lot of excitement because I was like, yes, I get to lift with other people. It's going to be fun. It's going to be at a convention. It just seemed like a good experience for me. And then I got there. There was like Dave Spitz there. There was Shaheen from Cal Strength, who doesn't really compete anymore, but he was really good at the time. And then you were there, of course, at the Aleco booth. And that's where I first met you.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember that I PR'd my snatch, I think at 115, and I PR'd my clean and jerk at 151. And one of the things that led me to contacting you down the road was I just remember the relationship that we kind of had that day. It just seemed like we had a good energy, good connection, good chemistry, and you seemed like kind of like that cool uncle that you could always call if you needed something or if you were in trouble. And I remember the next time that I contacted you was getting ready, because I was coaching myself as well, and I thought that I knew everything. I thought that I didn't need any help from anyone. I could figure it out on my own, and that's just kind of how I've always been. But
like I said, find a good coach.
Exactly. Well, the 2017 Nationals, getting ready for Chicago, I think I called you because I needed help, like learning how to combat long wait times in between sets. and you just talked to me on the phone and helped me through it a little bit, and I asked you to count for me in the back, and then you did. And I think that I actually didn't have a good meet. I had a rough meet. I might have gone like 3 for 6, I think, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And my goal was to total 300, and I fell short of that. And then I think that I think that we just kept working together at the back of meets, and eventually you just came to me and you were like,
You can't do this by yourself.
exactly.
Yeah.
So, what things did you see in me that made you say, I want to work with this guy and help this guy? And like, what are things that you saw that are like, I think this will be a good fit for me to coach this guy and help him? Like, can you talk about that process as a coach, meeting someone and saying, okay, I want to invest my time and effort into this person? What are the steps that you go through in your head?
I don't think it's really any systematic thing. It's just kind of a feel, When I saw you, I saw the work ethic, I saw the desire, I saw the passion, just a touch of craziness. Okay,
You got to have that.
Which is exactly, and that's good. If anything, I tend to be a little bit more too conservative and not crazy enough sometimes. But I can be crazy too, though. But yeah, I mean, you can just see in somebody, and I tend to read body language. I tend to read faces. I tend to read eyes. I can look at a kid and look in their eyes, and I can tell whether they're a good student in school or not.
Mm-hmm.
I'm right every time because I read people, and I read you. I looked you in the eyes. And I go, this guy has some potential.
Yeah.
And we'll do whatever we can to get as much out of that potential as we can, and we're still getting it.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that. And, obviously there's a lot of big teams out there. There's, Cal Strength and Catalyst and blah, 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 et cetera, et cetera. There's a million different, big coaches. And I feel like, in the social media world nowadays, people gravitate towards the biggest brands where it's like, oh, I see this influencer on Instagram, or this coach has 300,000 subscribers on YouTube, and they might think that that's the best fit because they might think that that's the best coach. But one of the reasons, like I said, that I decided to work with East Coast Gold and work with you is just because I thought that we had a good relationship.
Absolutely.
And I thought that you were someone I could depend on. And you had developed athletes to be in the spot that I wanted to be. I was like, if I want to be in those A sessions and medaling and, trying to make an international team, I need someone who's been there, who's developed athletes to there. So, that coupled with the relationship, that's why I made my decision. And it's paid off so far.
I'm glad you did.
I know, it's paid off so far.
Yeah.
So tell me about weightlifting back in the day, how it was different as an athlete and how it was different as a coach versus today.
Oh my God, such changes, unbelievable. Well, if nothing else, the equipment. Okay, I mean, back in the day, it was all metal plates. So anytime you dropped a weight, that platform took a beating. And what they did years ago, you had to put the weight down gently. You know what I mean? So from overhead, you brought it down to the chest. From the chest, you brought it to the thigh. From the thigh, you brought it down to the floor. That's how, well, of course, unless you missed. So that was one of the big things, just the equipment. The bars weren't as good. Back in the day when I was training, getting started, didn't have nearly the facilities that everybody has now with bumper plates and wide open gyms. And I would train in my basement and couldn't do overhead, so I got real good at doing snatch grip power cleans, 150 kilos snatch grip power clean.
Oh,
No shit.
Interesting.
No stuff.
Interesting. Snatch grip power cleans.
Yeah, because I couldn't snatch overhead in my
You were
basement.
all the way out here.
Yep.
No way, that's crazy.
That's crazy.
You're
But,
insane. I'm glad you
but
don't
again-
program those for me.
But again, you got to do what you got to do. Okay.
Yeah.
And back in the day, we didn't know any better. I mean, I would lift in garages, unheated garages in the middle of the winter with gloves and almost like a super suit type thing. 2 or 3 sweatshirts, 2 or 3. I mean, it was freezing. But you got to get the training in, so you got to get it done.
Absolutely.
So and then how meets were run, one platform, all day. I ran, I don't know how many meets, 2 or 3 meets a year, and we'd start at 6 o'clock in the morning, wouldn't finish till midnight, and everything's a lot more efficient now, and even locally they're running at least 2 platforms at a time, and now national meets, Heck, we had a national event one time on a skating rink.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
I've seen that.
Yeah, and now it's a huge production. Like National Masters, we have 3 platforms. AO series, we had 6 platforms a year or 2 ago, and it's just expanded so much, and that it's just been so many changes. It's hard to pinpoint just one thing.
As a coach, it must have been challenging to coach people remotely back then. Like if you didn't live near a coach, but like for example, Phil Sabatini, and you guys still wanted to work together. I mean, what were some of the challenges of coaching people back in the day without technology, social media?
Phone calls.
We
did phone calls, VHS tapes we would send. So I mean, everything was just so time consuming that now everything's done just like that. Heck, for myself even, I would make a video and then put it up on the TV screen, put graph paper on top of the screen so I could do the bar path. I was a geek. I mean, but that's the only way you could do it at the time. And so now with the technology, I mean, we have apps that you can have immediate feedback, and everything is through email or Dropbox or whatever. You send it, you get it right back, and get that immediate feedback. And that's the changes have been awesome, no doubt.
Absolutely.
And as a coach, you have to adapt to that stuff.
Yeah.
And you got to be more into technology, and for us older guys, it's a bit of a challenge. But
for the guys who still have home phones.
Can you explain that home phone thing? What happened is Zach keeps making fun of me because I have to have a landline in my house. Okay. I would prefer not to, but he thinks it's just because I'm an old fart, which I am, but that's not the reason I have the landline. I happen to live 200 yards away from the Maryland line in Pennsylvania.
Sure.
So I think the cell towers aren't picking up, so I don't get very good cell coverage in my house.
Yeah.
So
that's just what you tell people.
Okay, so I really want to have 2 phone lines that I'm paying for, right? Sure I do. I would much rather just pay for my cell phone and not worry about the other one, because I'm paying for that. Yeah. So why would I do that?
How much are home lines anymore? I don't even know.
I don't know.
I don't even know.
I don't know. My wife takes care of all that. But the point is that
my wife does too.
Yeah.
Okay. Next question. Where do your weightlifting and coaching philosophies stem from? What are just a couple things where you're like, I was really influenced in terms of like the things that I do, I coach, I program, the way that I think, these are some of the things that have influenced me to think this way.
Well, there's a lot of factors. I think when I started, my degree and my master's degree is in physical education. So education, right? And I think that's pretty important that, so I had some very good mentors as teachers because I knew by 7th grade I wanted to teach and coach. So it's kind of unusual because a lot of kids, they're changing all the time. They don't know really what direction they want to go. But I knew from 7th grade, I had really good physical education teachers and coaches. And I said, that's what I want to do. So I took all the courses I could to make myself be prepared. Even in high school, I took like advanced biology and whatever I could to help me when I got to college. And so, the education part, I think, really helped me as a coach. And then when I got out, I helped me coach myself. And then I coached a lot of other things too at the high school level. I was wrestling coach. That was my big thing, wrestling. And again, I had good coaches and mentors that I worked with. And then I coached a little bit of everything: tennis, gymnastics, track, swimming, even ended up coaching girls volleyball. And what I learned is that if you're a good teacher, you can coach anything. And so, I took all those things that I learned from the education part, and that really applies to coaching. So that's, I think, pretty much how the coaching thing started. And that's why, I had really good coaches and mentors along the way. And that's why even in my business now, TOTTEN Training Systems, we've developed a mentorship program where we're trying to coach coaches, right? Because all the things that took me years to figure out by trial and error, coaching-wise, well, now I can kind of spread the word and be a mentor, hopefully as good as the mentors that I had growing up.
Yeah.
So I just think, you keep learning from other people, and you go from there.
That's a point that I really like, that I talk with my athletes is, the skill of coaching it's like once you've developed the skill of coaching, the skill of communicating with people, the skill of relating to people, how to overcome adversity and obstacles, problem solving. Once you do that, you can coach anything. I mean, you could coach any sport.
And anybody.
And anybody, exactly. And then it just becomes a matter of learning the sport or learning, what you're coaching. But once you know how to work with people and coach, it seems like you can apply that to anything.
And you have to be adaptable because not everybody's the same. Okay, you can't treat everybody the same, and because you got to find out more about what their background was, what their expectations are, what their goals are. Some people you have to be really, really nice. You can't ruffle their feathers because they'll be offended.
They're fragile.
Yeah, they're fragile. And then you have others that you have to kick them in the butt occasionally, and that's what they need.
Yeah.
So, really trying to understand people. And
what would you consider me?
What do you mean?
What kind of person would you consider me to be?
Oh, you're a pain in the ass. No, I mean, you have your own personality,
Yeah.
which everybody does, okay?
Yeah.
And I kind of like that personality myself because you're outgoing, brash at times, but that, it's all in a good-natured way. It's not mean-spirited. It's all doing the right thing for yourself and for your athletes that you're coaching. So, you're doing okay, I guess. You're kind of emulating me a little bit, maybe.
Well, you know what? You're one of the guys who influenced me. One day maybe someone will be interviewing me on their video cast.
Absolutely.
And they'll say, "Who has influenced you?" And I'll say, "My coach, Leo Totten."
Well, I would be one that influenced you.
Well, you'll be one of them, but you'll be
too.
one of the big ones then for me. I think
I appreciate
you've
that.
influenced me a lot. Absolutely.
I appreciate that.
Cool. In your many years, you've had to face a bunch of challenges and obstacles, obviously. What have been some of the biggest ones that you've overcome, and what did you learn from those moments of challenge?
Right off the bat, I would say I dislocated my elbow at the Nationals in 1983.
Ouch.
Yeah, it was pretty severe, and it was a big challenge. I refused to let it keep me from going back to competition. So my goal was to get back to the Olympic trials in 1984. So I had a year, and within 9 months, I was back to snatch. Wasn't 100%, but I was enough to still make it to the trials and compete there. But that was quite the challenge,
Yeah.
And working through challenges like that, I think just makes you a better person.
Just mental challenge too, because you have to go approach the same weights that, in each lift you're kind of like, in the back of your mind, it's like.
Well, speaking of mine, that's another challenge that comes to my thoughts now, and that is, I went through a period before that when I was totaling about 310, something like that, and my lifts had just kind of leveled off. Okay, the training was going good, but in competition, it just stayed the same. So I figured, well, of course I'm coaching myself. Well, the harder I try, I'll do better. Well, the harder I tried, the worse I got.
Mm-hmm.
And so I started worrying about what the next competition was going to bring. 3 weeks before nationals, for instance, I'd be driving down the road and I'd start thinking to myself, okay, now at the meet I'm going to open with 135, and then I'm going to go to 140, and then I started, well, wait a minute, what if I miss 130? And then what happened? So it was all these negative thoughts going on in my mind, and so by the time the meet rolled around, I had zero adrenaline. Okay, and that made it even worse.
So you were just taxed mentally.
Exactly.
Checked out.
So I found a guy that was a sports psychologist, and he taught me through some things, taught me how to relax and how to have fun, back to having fun again, visualization, seeing myself doing good lifts, but relaxing. Meet started getting fun again. I wasn't worried about the competition. I could just focus on me and relax. Next thing you know, my lifts started moving again. So there are two pretty important things I think that influenced my lifting career.
Learning how to relax and learning how to overcome challenges and injuries and all sorts of stuff.
Exactly.
Yeah, because I think that you always say, worrying about your numbers too much is like tripping over your own dick.
I never said that. I never said that.
But anyway, no one's gonna be watching till then anyways. Don't worry.
Yeah.
But I hope they do. But anyway, I think that's something that I've experienced in my career as well. Like, at the beginning of my career, I was like so serious about like going to meets, and I'm like, okay, I got to hit this lift and then this lift and then this lift, and then all weekend you're just focused on that, like this perfect sequence happening in your brain. And then when you get to the back room, you don't even want to be there anymore because you're just like, you've been spending all of this mental energy getting there, and then you're finally there and you spent it all up.
Yeah.
So I think that one of the things that's really helped me is, like you said, learning how to relax, learning how to almost, like one of my friends, Nathan Lewis, said, he's like, you almost got to kind of not care.
Exactly.
You almost have to kind of not care.
You care, but
what
you don't
happens.
care. Yeah.
And it's like
whatever happens is going to happen.
Exactly. You just got to show up and you just got to say, okay, I'm ready. And then it's like you just go lift, and you almost have to just not care what happens. And it's like,
and I always use an example. I said there's probably about 100 trillion people in the world. They really don't give a crap what you do.
They don't. It's
so
really
if
only
you
you.
miss a lift or make a lift, they don't care.
My family still loves me if I miss all my lifts or if I make all my lifts. And so that's something.
That's how you have to look at it.
Exactly. That's something that I've had to teach myself, is just to really just relax and almost not care. And exactly. All right, last one. What are some big takeaways that you would like people to take away from your story today?
Well, I think I hit everything that would be important takeaways. But just be yourself and have fun doing it, and follow your passion. I mean, if your passion is being a weightlifting coach, then go after it, and follow your passion. Whatever you choose as a vocation, whatever you choose as a work, make sure it's something you like to do. And I was very fortunate that I had a 32-year teaching career that I enjoyed it, that every day I didn't have to drag myself out of bed. I didn't have to, the days flew by because I enjoyed what I was doing. So my biggest takeaway, I think, just find something that you really like to do and go after it and do it the best that you can. And finally, and I stress this all the time, keep learning, okay? I'm an old guy, okay? I'll admit that. I know you like to rub it in a little bit, but I'm still learning, okay? I'm not, I don't know it all. If you come across somebody who thinks they know it all, stay far away, because they have no clue. There's so much good information out there. Just keep learning, learning from the right people that have been there, that have done that, and done it the right way. Follow the research, and there's so many geniuses online, okay, who aren't really geniuses, but they market themselves really well. The more you learn and the more educated you become, the more you can kind of pick out the ones that, okay, this guy's full of crap. This guy, yeah, he knows what he's talking about. He's done this and that. He follows the research. It makes sense. I'm going to listen to that guy. That guy that's, he's kind of out there. I'm not going to worry about it. So be able to pick and choose, but just keep learning. I think that's real important.
Awesome. Well, Leo, the first legend that we had on the show, I appreciate your time today, and I appreciate the things you've done for me and the time and energy you've invested into me. And we're gearing up for nationals right now, 4 months out, and I care, but I don't care.
Exactly.
Like we talked about. But also, I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to do some big lifts, and I feel like some good stuff's on the horizon.
It's right there, man.
So really appreciate your time today, and hope everyone learned some stuff. So
appreciate you having me, Zach. Absolutely. You're a good man.
Thanks, man.